since I was already struggling, like I said, with my identity and all that kind of stuff, it got to the point where I needed to get help, because if I didn't get help, I would do something about it. I ended up going to a psych ward. I got on antidepressants. So I was actually raised with 3 brothers, and I was raised in a Catholic home, so it was very religious, very traditional. I mean, I even went to Sunday school when I was younger too. I got baptized, I was confirmed, but when I was younger, I was raised in an abusive home, physically, emotionally, and verbally abusive home. At around age 8 to 12, I was molested by one of my uncles. I kept it a secret for the longest time from my family because I was embarrassed and I didn't really know how they were going to react. I didn't even really know what was going on. I just knew that it was wrong. After that happened and with the abuse, I started struggling with my identity, and I started struggling with just knowing who I was and what my purpose in life was. I literally would be tormented by the spirits and would have sexual dreams of being with someone of the same gender for years. And I'd wake up and I remember I would feel so disgusted and so grossed out, and I'm just why am I going through this? And then it wasn't until I was 19, I started socializing with a friend online. And then I just felt it start turning from just a simple conversation to her flirting or her trying to hit on me. So things accelerated really quickly, and she wanted to get married with me. She wanted to start a relationship. And she's like, I can support you. I can take care of you. And to me, that seemed appealing because I didn't have that in my home. I didn't have that from my parents. They weren't there to support me and, be there for me. In my college year, I went to school in Oklahoma City, and I was on a wrestling scholarship there. And then I was introduced to this church there and met my first mentor, Candace, there, who completely turned my life around and really allowed me to see what the love of God was and, what it really looked like. And I'm just oh my gosh, there has to be more to this Jesus guy that people talk about. There has to be more to it. After that, I had one of my friends who committed suicide and had hung himself. Not only was I mainly struggling with my identity and knowing who I was, and I was struggling with depression and anxiety and fear and also suicidal thoughts just because of the things I had been through. I ended up finding out that my dad was sick. He had been sick in and out of hospitals for 3 months. And one day they ended up telling us that what they found was actually stage 4 cancer. He had 4 different types of cancer and a tumor that ran from the back of his neck down to his spine. So when I came back and I saw the cars and I saw the sheriff's car at the house, and suddenly I just feel my heart drop. I was at the end of the driveway, start running towards my house, my aunt, and my older brother, who would be the one that would abuse us and neglect us and stuff. He actually came out too. My aunt said, Mija, I'm sorry, but your dad's gone. And that broke me in so many different ways that I didn't know how to react. So it was abuse, it was losing my friend, it was being molested, it was losing my dad, and just being raised in a broken home. I dated this guy, I fell in love with him, I thought we were gonna get married, I thought everything was going great, and he ends up telling me, oh, well, I need to work on myself, and basically, obviously you do too. And I was very suicidal. It got to the point where I needed to get help, because if I didn't get help, I would do something about it. I ended up going to a psych ward. I got on antidepressants. I went to the hospital. I was locked up. We weren't even allowed to have floss, shoelaces, nothing like that. Our phones were taken away. it was almost about 2 weeks that I was in there with complete strangers. After I got out, like, I still kind of kept in contact with my ex, but didn't really talk to him. I was super heartbroken. I was still dealing with my dad. I didn't really know how to deal with that. And then things just fell apart from there. I was so vulnerable that I started seeking for love in all the wrong places. And I started getting attention from this girl that was on my wrestling team at this point. And I started noticing like the same pattern that had happened with the first girl that wanted to get engaged to me. I knew it was wrong, like the Holy Spirit that had been in me, you know, because God says that when we're His children, the Holy Spirit lives within us. So I literally would feel like the Holy Spirit like almost shaking me by my shirt as I was getting myself involved in sin and with her, and I would just ignore it. It's like I almost facepalm Jesus, and I was just like, you know what, not right now, God, not right now. I just want to be happy. That's what I told myself. So I started my first unofficial relationship with this girl and kind of kept it a secret. I let go of God, I let go of my beliefs. I ended up getting really caught in it that I was like almost willing to go to like pride marches. My friend even said like, welcome to the rainbow. You know, I was willing to accept that lifestyle because I didn't know who I was. So that's kind of how it all unraveled and got me there, I guess. I went back home and I was home for about 2 weeks. And this is like, I was still kind of dealing with everything, still like in between, you know, living in the world, but also kind of living with God. I was actually high for 3 days straight. I remember my best friend came over. I don't know, something in me just came across, and it was just like to tell her, pray for me. So I just said it. I was like, hey, can you pray for me? She's like, right now? And I'm just like, yeah. She ended up praying at like over 3 hours. I'm like crying and just sobbing and like screaming at like the top of my lungs. It's like God was giving me almost like realistic visions, showing me things that honestly really shook me and scared me. And it was at that point where God was just like, well, you choose me or you choose her. Like you can't have both, Marissa. You have to decide. Then everything like seemed to calm down. And she's like, okay, Marissa. She's like, tomorrow, she's like, I want you to come home with me. She's like, we're gonna go to church. We're gonna get you to get prayed for. So I went to church. I spoke to my pastor and just spilled everything out. So that was nerve-wracking. They got me connected with this lady named Maria who works at the church. And she anointed me and prayed for me. And so we rebuked a lot of things. But that manifested a couple of times. And I think every time that it happened, there was different parts of me that hadn't been healed yet that needed to be healed. You know, like my identity and my struggle with homosexuality and all those kinds of things, you know. And then also just like my struggle with learning how to deal and how to cope with the loss of my dad and not having him there. I remember I would still like struggle with it, even was still on the same team as this girl that I had been involved with. So the emotions, you know, lust and all that kind of stuff would still like appear, but I would just reject it because I knew that what God had for me was so much bigger, so much better. I had seen Him reveal Himself, you know, to me in parts of my life. So it was one day I was walking to class and I'm just like, I had her for class too. I would see her everywhere and I'm just like, God, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm still struggling with this. Like, I'm still fighting this. Is this even working? You know, I'm like praying and I'm just like, is this even working? I hear like a little voice say, like, he's getting weaker by the day. And he was talking about the enemy, like he's getting weaker by the day. Later on, I get these visions and one of them was about the girl, and he shows me an image of her being pregnant, and he says, this is somebody's wife. Okay, God. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna trust you that you're gonna pull me through. I had a lot of support from my church and just from the people that loved me and really saw me for who I truly was, you know. And now I could definitely say like God's healed me from that, you know, healed me from the brokenness that I grew up in, healed me from not knowing who I was to now knowing who I am and knowing what I stand for and what I'm here to do. God has used my story, I feel like, to you know, impact other people in my generation, people my age, which is something that I always ask for. I'm like, God, if I'm gonna go through so much pain and through like so much brokenness, like don't let it go to waste, like let it be for a reason. You know, so I've been able to share my testimony. I've been able to just be blunt and be real with people, because I feel like that's what people need. You know, people are seeking hope, and people are seeking more to life, and there really is more to life with Jesus. Like, it's not something like I thought myself was just gonna be a regulation and we have to walk in a perfect line. No, God doesn't want it to be that way. He wants us to have an actual relationship with Him. My name is Marissa Virueta, and this is my story.